Today's White House press briefing is expected to start any moment now, so we are going to watch for that to begin. As we do, we expect lots of questions on Hunter Biden after Karoline Jean-Pierre repeatedly said at these briefings that President Biden would not pardon his son. We know how that went. Incoming Trump press secretary Karoline Leavitt joins us now, and it is a pleasure to have you here.
It's great to see you, Sandra. Thanks for having me.
By the way, I want to first point out that you are going to be the youngest White House press secretary in U.S. history, 27 years old. What was it like the day you got the job?
It's an incredible honor, and I'm so humbled that President Trump believes in me to speak on his behalf as the next president of the United States. I've been his spokeswoman on the campaign trail for the past 2 years, and it's been the honor of a lifetime to witness the greatest political campaign in history. So I very much look forward to this. It's a big responsibility. I feel the weight of that, but I'm excited to speak on behalf of a president who has a real mandate from the American people to change their lives and to deliver on the promises he made on the campaign trail.
He said in his announcement that you would be his press secretary, that you will excel at the podium. Speaking of which, we just saw a live look at the podium because we are anticipating a White House press briefing. And this will be her first on-camera appearance, Karoline Jean-Pierre. She did one gaggle, but since the president pardoned his son, Hunter, here she was repeatedly denying that that would ever happen. Watch.
Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well, is there
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead.
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no. It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
I don't know any other way to look at it than she was lied to, and she was sent out to that podium to say that, and he has since pardoned his son. How would you handle a situation like that?
You tell the truth, and I think Karoline Jean-Pierre was lied to, or she was lying to the press and therefore the American people, which is a complete dereliction of duty. And you need to have a direct relationship to your boss, which I do in President Trump, who tells the truth. And I'm just here to voice his opinion on behalf of him to the American public, and I plan to do that in my role. Unfortunately, this was not the first lie that we heard from the Biden White House at that podium. Karoline Jean-Pierre and the Biden White House consistently told the American people the border was secure. Americans knew that wasn't true. They told them Bidenomics was working, inflation was transitory. Those were both lies as well. We also heard the White House press secretary say that her boss was mentally fit and capable for the job. We saw that was not true either on the debate stage. And so we look forward to bringing truth and transparency back to the White House in January.
Are you planning or thinking through any potential changes in the way that room works and the way the press briefings work? Because this is a headline and quote from The Hill on President-elect Trump's potential shakeup of the White House press briefing room. They're saying that the press corps is recoiling at his threat to shake it up. It would be a total mess. So one White House reporter told The Hill this week, I would expect people would probably boycott the briefings, so that would put certain outlets in a tough spot. Any plans to change the way the briefing room works?
Well, let me preface by saying that there has never been a more transparent president than Donald Trump. We saw that in his first term. He consistently called the press into the Oval Office when he was signing bills. He took questions from them directly. That's something the press, I know, is yearning for. They have not had that over the past 4 years. So their transparency and their access to the leader of the free world will be increased, and also to the press secretary as well. We will be holding briefings in that room. I think as far as the landscape of the briefing room, it needs to reflect the media habits of the American people in 2024, not in the 1980s. And President Trump won this election by utilizing non-traditional, non-legacy media voices outside the Beltway. That's clearly who the American people are listening to. That's how they're digesting their news. And I think it would be irresponsible of us not to include some of those voices in the briefing room. It is my job to communicate the president's message to the American people as effectively as possible. And we're looking into ways to do that.
So some of those independent journalists will be invited in?
We don't know specific changes just yet, but we're certainly exploring all options.
All right. I want to finish up by asking you about some of the president-elect's picks as of now. One of the first things you sat down was the optimism that we heard from the president-elect in a tweet this morning over Pete Hegseth in the Department of Defense. What do you see happening there?
Well, contrary to what many in the media are reporting, there has never been a wavering in the optimism and the confidence from President Trump in Pete Hegseth. He is brilliant. He is intelligent. He is a war fighter, a decorated combat veteran who honorably served this great country. And when you hear him speak on Capitol Hill, you hear how passionate he is to stand up for the war fighters, the men and women who are honorably serving this country in uniform. The Pentagon is clearly failing the American people. Look at the conflicts we are embroiled in abroad. They just failed their 7th audit in a row. The American people elected President Trump to nominate outsiders who are not entrenched in Washington politics to shake up the swamp. That's exactly what Pete Hegseth is going to do. That's why the swamp is after him. President Trump stands by him 100%.
What's it like to spend all that time around Elon Musk?
He's a very interesting and brilliant guy who, once in a generation business leader who's going to bring real change to the government. It's going to be an exciting 4 years.
They've got everybody talking, he and Vivek, with this Doge. Even Senator Fetterman says, I don't know why it's controversial to want to eliminate waste.
Who could be against government
efficiency? Can you imagine that?
That's
Some bipartisan agreement. Great to have you here, Karoline. Congratulations on the role, and we hope to see a lot more of you soon.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
All right.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.